You know how this system works. We've heard this morning that you can mostly do this online, but what is your understanding? Do you know about the CRN number? If you don't already have one, which thousands of people won't, do you actually physically have to go into the office?
Well, the recommendation is that you do need to see someone or you need to apply online. A lot of people are turning up because they can't get access online. And, you know, in my part of Western Sydney, we saw people lining up out Mount Druitt Way, I was told, for 3 hours, and those scenes were replicated across the country. And you just can't have a minister like Stuart Robert get up and say, well, you know, we think it's as a result, you know, people can't get online because of cyber attacks.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, people could see with their own eyes lines, you know, as long as they could see.
Well, immediately,
you know,
Ed, that didn't make sense to you yesterday, did it? You were quite sceptical of that claim that it was some kind of a cyber attack. It turns out that was correct. Look, that's by the by. I mean, I don't really care whether it was a cyber attack or not. The fact is, people cannot get online to get this money that they need. There are people lining up in these Centrelink offices that have literally got $10 left in their account. The idea that people have savings to get them through here is not right.
That's right. And the other thing I was just going to make the point is there are a lot of people that have never used Centrelink.
That's right.
That have rocked up for the first time and are not familiar. So, you know, you need to be able to bring them up to speed. My point about yesterday and the claim that it was a cyber attack, I think this is a time where people just want straight talk, they want facts, they want clear advice. You know, if some people, it was clear to every Australian that Centrelink was under pressure, just say that. The website was overloaded.
Yep.
I mean, frankly, there's another discussion to be had about whether or not the government was complacent and hadn't thought ahead about whether or not volumes on the website would be such that they didn't configure the network to be able to accept that higher level. But putting that aside for 1 minute, you know, what Scott Morrison should be doing with all his ministers is just saying, if there's a problem, fess up. Don't make something up. Don't suggest otherwise unless you have clear facts. Just give it to the people straight and then work out what's the workaround and let people be able to determine then what they should do. And, you know, I saw earlier that the Social Services Minister may have been urging people to be patient with Centrelink. I think we should be impatient with complacency by the government in not taking steps as soon as they possibly can, and knowing in advance what's coming.
I agree with you. Look, the blame game helps no one at this point. You know this system really well. So, I mean, you're on the opposition side. You're on the opposition benches. So I just want to make that really clear to our viewers. But what is your advice? If you're really desperate for money, you've got to keep on lining up. But perhaps those people that do have a little bit of a buffer there and they can wait a couple of days, should they just maybe pull out of the system so those who are desperately in need can get online and get into these offices?
So obviously there may be elements where you're urging people to exercise common sense, and if they do have some room to move, maybe step back from the system. But there will be people that are thinking, well, if it takes ages for the government to process my claim, maybe I need to get in the queue early. And this is where government action in advance will make a difference. And I think there are probably some other things as well that the government could consider. I mean, I welcome the fact that they're going to bring on 5,000 extra people, but the other area where they might want to consider bringing on additional people is from within the public service. There'll be elements of the public service that are underutilised over the coming weeks and months, and they'll have skill sets that can be easily, with a bit of retraining, brought to the front line to assist those in particular who are just coming into contact with Centrelink for the first time and need to know the simple basic questions. So redeploying elements of the public service, I think they should certainly be considering. And there'll be other people as well out in the general workforce, Laura, who've just lost their job, but have again got skill sets with a bit of retraining, could be brought on board on short-term basis to be able to help meet this load. I mean, this is Australians working with other Australians to make it life easier as easier it can be in some exceptionally tough times.
I think people are really reaching out at the moment. I've seen a lot of this in my own community and probably yours as well. I mean, a colleague of mine asked today publicly, is there some way we can donate for people who who can't get the money, access to this money? Or is it as simple as doing things like, if you know someone's lost their job and you have the ability to, I don't know, pay someone for babysitting or continue those cleaning services, should you do that?
Well, I think people, you know, regardless of what you or I or what the government might discuss amongst itself, yeah, there's one thing we can be sure on: Australians will chip in and help other Australians out in their time of need. I reckon this stuff is going to happen at a community level, no doubt. And I know it'll happen in our area. Neighbours will be helping neighbours, or other people that they know are in strife, or making donations to Food Bank to help people that are doing it tough. Because, like you said earlier, they may be dipping into their savings that are diminishing rather rapidly, and they need that help in those times. Cutting people slack, understanding that people are doing it tough. I think that stuff is going to happen, but I do think we where we can, we're a smart nation. We've got clever people within the government and public service. Getting those things happening quicker will matter. I noticed, if I can say, old mate Josh Frydenberg saying that he's right in saying this is an enemy that doesn't have a face and that we need to deploy all the weapons. I would be urging the government to, you know, deploy those weapons a lot quicker. We're saying we've got the weapons in hand. Bringing forward some of those things will matter. Bringing forward the rollout of pop-up clinics, we shouldn't be waiting until May for that. Bringing forward some of those payments. Some pensioners will need money earlier rather than waiting till July for some of their payments. This stuff should be brought forward, and if there's a reason why it's not happening, then again, just be upfront and let people know and explain why, because I think in these times we don't want politicians bickering amongst each other, and we certainly will cut people slack, but just, you know, take the people in your trust, I reckon.